Today we're going to break down a really detailed, kind of scary war game that's set in the near future. Now, the conflict itself is fictional, but you're about to see that the lessons it teaches us about modern missile warfare, those are very, very real. Let's dive in.
So, picture this. It's June 2025. For 12 days, Iran and Israel are locked in a conflict that is completely new. There are no ground troops, no clashes at the border. Nope. This is a war fought from hundreds of miles away. Just a relentless duel between missiles and the interceptors trying to shoot them down.
And this whole thing kicks off with an Iranian offensive on a scale that's just, well, unprecedented. We are talking about a massive, coordinated barrage of long-range weapons all pointed in one direction, straight at Israel.
Get this. In just those 12 days, Iran launches 574 ballistic missiles. Just let that number sink in for a second. That works out to nearly 50 missiles screaming through the sky toward their targets every single day.
But it wasn't just the missiles. On top of all that, you had over 1,000 drones, 1,084 to be exact. The whole idea was to create this complex, multi-layered attack from all angles, designed to just completely saturate and overwhelm any defense they could possibly put up.
And you can see from the data, this was not some big one-off opening shot. No, these were relentless daily waves of attacks. The goal here wasn't just to land one big punch, it was to totally exhaust the defender's ability to even respond. So the big question is, how do you even begin to defend against an onslaught like that? Well, the answer turned out to be a combined, super high-tech shield put up by both Israeli and U.S. forces working together. Now, the secret sauce to this whole defense is something called Integrated Air and Missile Defense, or IAMD. You know, you can think of it like this. It's about getting all your different defense systems to talk to each other in real time, to work as one big, cohesive team. They're sharing data from radars and sensors to create a single shield that's way, way stronger than the sum of its parts.
And honestly, the results were staggering. Of all the missiles that posed a real threat, the ones heading for critical areas, that shield successfully intercepted 85% of them. That is just an incredible success rate, especially when you consider the insane amount of fire it was under.
And it wasn't just one system doing all the work. You can see here how it was all layered. You've got Israel's Arrow system, U.S. systems like THAAD on the ground, and SM-3s on ships at sea. Each one is operating at a different altitude, at a different range. It's like a multi-layered net, So if a threat somehow slips through one layer, there's another one right there waiting to catch it.
This created this perfect positive feedback loop. The defense was so effective that it bought precious time for Israeli offensive airstrikes deep inside Iran. And what did those strikes do? They destroyed launchers on the ground, which in turn reduced the number of missiles being fired in the first place. So the defense enabled the offense, and the offense made the defense's job a whole lot easier.
Okay, but this incredible success story has a twist. Because while the shield held up, the victory came at a massive, almost hidden cost. And that cost revealed some really serious vulnerabilities.
And this is really the crucial question, right? An 85% interception rate, that sounds like a complete and total win. But when you start to dig into what it actually took to get that win, a very different and much more worrying picture starts to emerge.
Here it is. This is the hidden cost. To pull off that defense, the U.S. military burned through nearly a quarter, 24% of its entire global stockpile of THAAD interceptors, a quarter of the whole arsenal, gone in just 12 days. To replace those interceptors would take over a year and a half. That is just not sustainable. And it's a huge problem that military planners are worried about far beyond just this one scenario.
And of course, Iran didn't just sit there and take it. They adapted. They shifted their strategy mid-fight. They went from these massive barrages against military targets to smaller, more surgical waves using more precise missiles aimed right at cities and critical infrastructure. They figured out pretty quickly it was way more effective to cause chaos and terror with fewer, smarter attacks than to just try and overwhelm the shield with brute force.
So what we're left with is a victory that feels a lot more like a warning. It exposed a dangerously high burn rate for those precious interceptors, a critical reliance on the U.S. being able to rush in help, and it proved that a determined enemy is always going to adapt and find the cracks in the armor.
Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway from this whole exercise. This 12-day war, it wasn't the end of something. It was just one battle in a much longer, much faster-paced technological arms race.
At the end of the day, the next conflict is not going to be won with the strategy of the last one. It all comes down to who can adapt and innovate the fastest. As the report puts it, the outcome will largely depend on which countries can most effectively strengthen their offensive and defensive abilities. It's a race to rearm and to build smarter.
And look, this isn't just a theory. Real-world analysis of satellite images suggests that after a conflict, Iran makes rebuilding its ballistic missile sites a top priority, above almost everything else. That tells you everything you need to know about where their focus is. The arms race is already on.
And these two images, they just perfectly capture that entire dynamic. On one side, you have the shield, that interceptor climbing into the sky. And on the other, you have the sword, the incredible reach of Iran's offensive missile arsenal. It is a constant, high-stakes competition between these two realities.
And that really brings us to the core challenge that this fictional war lays bare. The high-tech shield worked, but it was nearly exhausted in the process. Victory in the future isn't just about having the best tech anymore. It's about having enough of it and being able to produce it faster than your adversary can produce their weapons. So the question becomes, who's going to win that race?